She smirked. "It's a miracle that I haven't dumped you yet. Other guys would die for a chance." I replied, "Then go find them." That weekend, I brought a new date. She never expected it, and the look on her face was priceless. "Hey, Reddit. Figured I'd finally share this story. It's about my ex who thought she was untouchable. The kind of person who acted like I should worship the ground she walked on. Let's just say she found out the hard way that I wasn't built to play doormat. And watching her world unravel after I walked away? That was something else. So, I'm Cameron, 27M. For 3 years, I was with Phoebe, 24F. At first, she was that girl people notice when she walks into a room. Funny, smart, quick with comebacks, the type that made my buddies say, "Dude, you scored." And I thought so too. For a while. The problem is, when someone gets told they're special long enough, they start believing everyone else is just a background character in their little movie. That's what happened with Phoebe. Somewhere along the way, her confidence mutated into full-blown arrogance. And me. According to her, my role was to sit there smiling like her loyal golden retriever. It started small. Backhanded comments like, "Wow, you're actually decent at this." Or, "Good thing you're with me or you'd still be wearing graphic t-shirts." At first, I brushed it off. She was teasing, right? Except it never stopped. Every outing, every group hang, it was some dig at me. The joke was always that I should be grateful she chose me. Here's the thing though, I wasn't exactly desperate before her. I had my life together. Solid career, decent apartment, friends who respected me, hobbies that kept me sane. I wasn't some lost soul she rescued. But the way she talked, you'd think she discovered me under a bridge and polished me up. For a long time I just absorbed it. Not because I was weak, but because it didn't feel worth the energy to clap back at every little jab. But over time, it started to feel like I was living in a permanent performance review with a boss who only knew how to criticize. The week before everything blew up, I caught myself staring at her while she was scrolling Instagram, practicing poses like she was auditioning for a role nobody offered her. And I thought, man, this is exhausting. Do I even like her anymore? That thought sat in the back of my head, whispering louder every time she opened her mouth. By the time Thursday rolled around, I was already leaning toward ending things. All I needed was the right excuse. And boy, she delivered it on a silver platter. We were heading out for dinner with friends. She's standing in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress, doing that half smirk she thinks is sexy. Out of nowhere she goes, "You know, Cameron, you're so complacent. You're lucky to have me. Do you even realize other guys fight each other to have me?" Now, I'd let her little dig slide plenty of times. But this one, it was so direct, so arrogant, so stupidly overconfident. I couldn't help myself. I leaned on the doorway, arms crossed, and said, "Oh, I'm grateful. Grateful I don't have to fight off the invisible army of guys lining up outside the door. Must be rough being such a hot commodity." She whipped her head around like she couldn't believe I dared to respond. "Don't be sarcastic, Cameron. I'm serious." "Yeah, I know you're serious. That's the funny part." She scowled, turned back to the mirror, clearly thinking she'd shut me down. Spoiler, she hadn't. Later that night at dinner, everything's normal until Phoebe decides it's time to perform. She leans back in her chair, loud enough for the whole table to hear, and says, "Honestly, I don't know how Cameron keeps up. It's a miracle that I haven't dumped him yet. Other guys would die for a chance." The table goes awkwardly quiet for a beat. Everyone glances at me, expecting me to chuckle and nod like the trained pet she wanted. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. I set my fork down, leaned forward, and said, "Then why are you still here? Go find them." Dead silence. Then a couple stifled laughs from the guys at the end of the table. Phoebe blinked like she'd just been slapped with a wet towel. "What's that supposed to mean?" she demanded. "It means exactly what it sounds like," I said. "If there are so many guys dying for the privilege, I won't stand in their way. Hell, I'll even hold the door open for them." One of my buddies nearly choked, trying not to laugh. Phoebe's face went red, not the cute blush kind, but the blotchy rage kind. She hissed, You're embarrassing me. Nah, I said, leaning back. You did that yourself. She shut up after that, clearly rattled, but I could feel the daggers she was staring into the side of my head. Me. I just enjoyed my meal. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like the butt of the joke. I'd flipped the script, and the look on her face was worth every second of discomfort she thought she was serving me. By the time dessert rolled around, I had already made the decision. I wasn't sticking around for another round of her ego trip. I was done. Dinner ended with Phoebe fake smiling through her teeth while everyone else avoided eye contact. I wasn't about to sit through an awkward car ride home, so I called it right there. Tossed some cash on the table, told the group I'd catch them later, and walked out without even waiting for her. By the time I got to my car, my phone was already lighting up with texts. Where are you? Don't just walk out like that. You're acting insecure. I ignored every single one, drove straight back to the apartment, and went upstairs. 15 minutes later, the buzzer went off. Of course, it was her. She'd taken an Uber, still in full meltdown mode. The second the door opened, she stormed in like she owned the place, pacing around the living room like some lawyer prepping her closing argument. You really think you're better off without me? Cameron, wake up. You'll come crawling back. I'm the best thing that's ever happened to you. I set my keys on the counter, walked straight to the closet, and pulled out a duffel bag. Her jaw actually dropped when I started throwing in clothes. What are you doing? I said flat, lease is in my name. You can start packing. I'm not wasting another second in this circus. She sputtered like an engine with no gas. You can't just decide that. I zipped the bag shut. Pretty sure I just did. For once, she didn't have a comeback. She just stood there, eyes wide, hands clenched, like she couldn't believe I'd actually called her bluff. I walked out, duffel over my shoulder, her voice screeching behind me about how pathetic I was, how I'd regret it, how everyone would see the truth. I checked into a hotel that night. Best sleep I'd had in months. No passive-aggressive sighs. No insults disguised as jokes. No constant tension. Just silence. Peaceful, glorious silence. The next morning, I made 2 calls. First, to the landlord. Since the lease was under my name, I let him know Phoebe would be moving out and I'd be changing the locks. He didn't care as long as rent was paid. Easy. He even signed off on me changing the locks. And I gave her a pickup window. If she dragged it out, I was ready to get a police escort involved. No drama. Just procedure. Second call was to myself. More like a reality check. You're free now, Cameron. Don't screw this up by letting her reel you back in. Of course, Phoebe wasn't going to let go quietly. By noon, my phone had blown up with messages. Paragraphs about how I was overreacting. Paragraphs about how she'd forgive me if I apologized. Paragraphs about how I was throwing away a queen. I blocked her number. That didn't stop her. Within an hour, Sarah, her loyal sidekick, called me. Cameron, you need to stop this nonsense. Phoebe's devastated. She told us you freaked out over a silly comment. I laughed. A silly comment? She said other guys would die to have her. She's been treating me like I should be grateful for scraps for years. I'm done. Sarah huffed like I just kicked a puppy. You're being selfish. Good, I said and hung up. By Friday, the flying monkeys were in full force. Foe's mom, Cassandra, actually called me and had the nerve to say, "You can't just throw my daughter out. You're responsible for her lifestyle. What will people think if you abandon her?" I nearly dropped the phone laughing. Cassandra, your daughter's 24. If she needs a babysitter, that's on you, not me. Then I blocked her too. But the real deal came when I remembered the engagement party that weekend. Liam and Chloe, mutual friends, had invited both of us months ago. And Phoebe, in her infinite arrogance, sent me a message on Instagram. "It's going to be so embarrassing for you when you show up alone." That was her plan. She wanted me walking in solo, looking like the bitter ex, while she spun her little victim story. She thought public shame would keep me in line. And that's when I decided to rewrite the script. I scrolled through my contacts until I landed on Julia. Now, Julia wasn't random. She and Phoebe had history. Back in college, they hated each other. Something about Julia getting an internship Phoebe wanted, then outshining her in a group project. Whatever it was, Phoebe couldn't stand her. Anytime Julia's name came up, Phoebe would roll her eyes and mutter, "That fake witch." Julia and I had reconnected a few months back on a work project. She was smart, funny, and way more grounded than Phoebe ever was. And yes, single. I didn't know if she'd say yes, but it was worth a shot. So I texted, "Hey Julia, it's Cameron. This is random, but my plans for Saturday night just opened up. Want to be my +1 to an engagement party? Totally cool if not." 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Cameron, you just turned my boring Saturday into something interesting. I'm in." I actually grinned. Not because of some rebound fantasy, but because I knew exactly how much this would burn Phoebe. Showing up with Julia, the one person she despised, would nuke her whole little narrative. That night, I blocked another dozen messages from Phoebe and her crew. I didn't bother replying. I didn't need to defend myself. The best defense was showing up with a grin on my face and Julia on my arm. And for the first time in years, I was actually looking forward to a Saturday night. I picked up Julia, and the first thing I noticed wasn't even the dress. It was the smirk. She already knew she was about to walk into Phoebe's little kingdom and burn it down without even trying. That's what made it great. She didn't need to play the look-at-me game. She just carried herself like she belonged. That alone would drive Phoebe insane. On the way there, Julia asked, "So, what's the strategy?" "Strategy's simple," I said. "Smile, eat free food, and watch Phoebe choke on her own arrogance." Julia grinned. "Sounds like my kind of night." The party was buzzing when we walked in. Normal stuff. People huddled in circles, music low enough to talk over, the hosts running around making sure everyone had a drink. Except the second we stepped through the door, it felt like the room tilted. Everyone expected me to show up alone, sulking in the corner. Instead, I showed up with the one woman Phoebe never wanted to see again. Liam spotted me first. He shook my hand and gave me that respect nod guys give when they know you pulled a power move. Chloe hugged Julia like they were old friends. And I could already see whispers starting in the corners of the room. Good. Let the news travel. Julia didn't even need coaching. She worked the room like it was her job. Talking, laughing, making people actually enjoy her company. Not fake smile politeness like Phoebe always did, but genuine energy. You could see the difference in how people reacted. And then it happened, that moment you can feel eyes burning into you. Phoebe was across the yard holding court by the fire pit, telling some exaggerated story with Sarah glued to her side. The second she spotted us, she froze mid-sentence. Her expression went from smug to shocked in under 2 seconds. The look alone was worth the invite. Julia leaned toward me and whispered. She saw us. "Good," I said. "Let's take the long way around and let it marinate." So we did. We didn't go straight to her. We greeted people, shook hands, chatted casually like it was just another Saturday. Every time I laughed at something Julia said, I could feel Foe's blood pressure spike from across the lawn. Eventually, she couldn't take it anymore. She strutted over with that fake grin she thinks hides her rage. "Cameron," she said, sugary voice, eyes flicking over Julia like she was gum stuck to her shoe. "And you brought a friend." "Julia," I said, cool as ever. "You remember Julia?" Julia extended her hand. Calm and collected. "Nice to see you again, Phoebe." Phoebe ignored the hand. "Of course, Julia." Cameron moving on so fast. "It's kind of desperate, don't you think?" She made sure people nearby heard. Classic Phoebe move. I didn't blink. "Not really. You said on Thursday other guys would die to have you. I just figured I'd stop wasting my time being grateful and see what else is out there." Worked out pretty well. Boom. Half the people around us looked down into their drinks, trying not to laugh. Foe's face did that blotchy red thing again, like she was about to pop a vein. And right on cue, Ethan, the lapdog, showed up. Guy's been orbiting her for years hoping she'd toss him a crumb. He puffed his chest out and said, "Really, Cameron? You had to bring Julia here? That's just cruel. Phoebe deserves better." I turned to him and grinned. "Ethan, buddy, you've been holding Foe's purse for 3 years, and she still hasn't noticed you exist. You're basically her unpaid intern. Lots of work, 0 benefits." And people actually laughed out loud at that one. Ethan's face went pale, then red, then pale again. He stammered something and retreated like a whipped puppy. Phoebe tried to jump back in, but the damage was already done. Everyone saw it. She wasn't the queen bee anymore. She was the joke. I clapped Julia on the shoulder. "Come on, let's grab some food." We walked away while Phoebe stood there frozen, Sarah whispering in her ear like a frantic PR manager trying to spin a disaster. Julia leaned in and said, "That unpaid intern line was savage." "He earned it," I said. "You defend a clown, you get treated like one." The rest of the night was smooth. Julia was the center of attention without even trying. And I didn't have to perform. I just relaxed and enjoyed myself. Every so often I'd catch Phoebe staring. And instead of smirking or gloating, I just ignored her. That's what really ate at her. Not that I roasted her. Not that Julia was there. But that I genuinely didn't care anymore. By the time Liam made his toast, Phoebe had gone from life of the party to standing in a shrinking circle of her diehards, looking like someone stole her script. And me. I was finally free of it. She had no power left. At least that's what I thought. Turns out, when someone like Phoebe loses control, they don't accept it. They scramble to find new ways to claw it back. And when the claws don't work, they start throwing grenades. The morning after the party, I woke up to an unknown number lighting up my phone. Normally, I don't answer unknowns, but something told me this one would be entertaining. I swiped. How could you? Yep, Phoebe. I held the phone back a little. She was practically blowing out the speaker. "Good morning to you too," I said, deadpan. "You brought Julia to their party. Do you know how humiliating that was for me?" "Yeah," I said. "That was kind of the point." Dead silence. She didn't expect me to say it. Then came the screeching. "You're disgusting. You're spiteful. You did this just to hurt me." "Correction," I said. "I did it to enjoy myself. You just happened to implode on your own. Don't pin that on me." She tried every angle in 30 seconds flat, crying, yelling, claiming she still loved me, then snapping back into, "You'll regret this. Everyone thinks you're pathetic." "Funny," I said. Pretty sure the only pathetic one was the guy I roasted in front of half the guest list. "How's Ethan doing, by the way? Still wiping your feet with his hoodie?" That earned me another round of screaming. I hung up mid. I ranted and blocked the number. But of course, Phoebe doesn't travel alone. She's got her little army. By lunch, Sarah was blowing up my phone with paragraphs. "Phoebe is heartbroken. How could you flaunt Julia like that? You're cruel. You owe her an apology." I replied with exactly one sentence. I owe her about as much as she owed me for rent, which was nothing. Then I blocked Sarah too. Next up was Ethan, because of course it was. His text. "You think you're clever? Everyone saw how desperate you looked dragging Julia there. Phoebe deserves better than you." I shot back. "Congrats on being the runner-up to a woman who thinks Instagram filters count as a career. Enjoy the friend zone, champ." Then I blocked him as well. By the end of the day, I had 3 blocked numbers and a pile of pathetic attempts at guilt-tripping. It was like swatting mosquitoes, annoying, but not threatening. Or so I thought. Wednesday afternoon, I got an email from HR with the subject line, "Formal complaint." My stomach dropped for a second. Then I opened it, and sure enough, it reeked of Phoebe. The complaint said I was using company resources for inappropriate side activities, that I was harassing women in the office, and that my unstable and aggressive behavior was creating a hostile environment. All vague. All nuclear. Classic Phoebe. If she couldn't hurt me socially, she'd try to torch my career. I didn't panic. Instead, I walked straight into my boss Richard's office with the email pulled up. You're going to want to see this, I said. Richard read it, frowned, then called in Linda from HR. I laid it out. Look, I just broke up with Phoebe. She didn't take it well. This complaint is her retaliation. Here's proof. I pulled out my ace, a note I'd written months ago after a fight, when she literally threatened to call my boss and tell him I was unstable if I ever left her. Dated, time-stamped, saved in my notes app. Linda read it, her eyebrows climbing. She actually said this word for word. I said she's been waiting to pull this trigger. I knew she'd do it eventually. Richard leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. We'll investigate, but honestly, this is already looking malicious. Just keep your head down while we run the logs. Not a problem, I said. I've got nothing to hide. And I didn't. My work was clean. I never used company stuff for side gigs. Never so much as looked at a coworker the wrong way. If anything, my biggest crime was finishing projects ahead of schedule. Over the next 2 days, Linda checked system logs, emails, and project trails. Every accusation collapsed under 5 minutes of scrutiny. No side business. No harassment. No instability. Just me doing my job. Meanwhile, Phoebe was still trying to reach me through random numbers. One voicemail slipped through before I blocked it. Enjoy your little games, Cameron. HR won't save you. You'll end up crawling back to me. I saved that voicemail, just in case. By Friday morning, HR called me back in. Linda had a folder in her hand and a look that said she wasn't thrilled, but not at me. We found nothing, she said. The complaint is unfounded. Given the context you provided, we're flagging it as malicious harassment. It won't affect your record. In fact, we're documenting that you were targeted. Richard leaned back. We've got your back, Cameron. Don't let this rattle you. I nodded. Oh, it didn't rattle me. It just confirmed I was right about her. But in my head, I'd already made the next decision. Phoebe went for the jugular. That wasn't a slap-on-the-wrist move. That was escalation, which meant it was time for me to stop playing nice. The difference between us was simple. She thought revenge was screaming, slandering, throwing tantrums. I preferred revenge that actually stuck. And I was just getting started. Friday evening, I got a text from another unknown number. Phoebe again, obviously. This time it wasn't begging or bargaining. It was a command. I'm coming Saturday at noon to get my things. Be there. I stared at it, laughed, and typed back. Saturday at noon works. I'll be here. Short. Cold. Because by then, the apartment was already stripped. Movers had rolled through that morning. All her clothes, makeup, books, little trinkets. Boxed, taped, labeled, stacked by the door like a clearance sale nobody wanted. Everything else? Mine. I had the receipts tucked neatly in a folder on the kitchen counter. Couch, TV, bed, dining table, appliances. Every major purchase had my name on it. She always acted like she designed the place, like her taste turned it into a home. In reality, she hadn't spent a dime. So when noon hit, I was sitting on a bare couch, eating leftover Chinese, waiting for the circus to arrive. Right on time, the buzzer rang. I opened the door, and there she was, flanked by Sarah and her mother, Cassandra. The entitled army. Phoebe stormed in like she owned the building, eyes scanning the room. The second she saw the bare walls and the neat stack of boxes, her smirk cracked. What the hell is this? Where's my couch? Where's my table? Your stuff's in the boxes, I said evenly. Everything else stays. I bought it. Got the receipts right here. I tapped the folder. She blinked, then barked out this insane laugh. Receipts? Are you serious? You're really going to pretend everything in this place is yours? Not pretending, I said. Documented fact. You can dig through the folder if you want. Just don't bend the pages. Her face went red. She spun toward her mother, pointing like a child. Mom, tell him that couch is mine. That table is mine. He can't keep this from me. Cassandra stepped forward, voice sharp. You can't just throw her out and take everything. Cameron, she built this home with you. It's half hers. I raised an eyebrow. Built this home. She picked the paint color. That's it. Everything else I paid for. Down to the stupid rug she tripped over last month. You want to challenge that? I'll grab my laptop and pull up the order confirmations. Sarah chimed in, crossing her arms like she was a lawyer on a courtroom show. You're being heartless. She deserves to leave with dignity, not like this. Then maybe she shouldn't be throwing tantrums in other people's houses. I shot back. She's getting more dignity than she gave me for the last 3 years. Phoebe stomped toward the couch and slapped her hand on it. This is mine. I picked it out. Congrats, I said. You pointed at a picture in a catalog. I paid for it. Big difference. She turned back to me, shaking, her voice hitting that shrill pitch that could shatter glass. You can't do this. You can't erase me like I never lived here. Erase you? I smirked. You're not an entry in a textbook. You're just an ex with bad taste in furniture. And yes, I can do this because it's all mine. That's when she lost it. She kicked one of the stacked boxes, sending it tumbling across the floor. Books spilled everywhere. I'm not leaving without my things, she screamed. I stood up, calm, collected, and walked over until I was a few feet from her. Those are your things in the boxes. You've got 5 minutes to get them out of here before I call the cops and tell them you're trespassing and damaging property. Her mother gasped like I'd slapped her. How dare you? Try me, I cut her off. I don't bluff. 5 minutes. For the first time, Phoebe's rage faltered. She looked at me, at the folder on the counter, at the boxes on the floor. She could tell I wasn't messing around. The calm tone, the clock running out, the threat of cops, it all broke through her delusion. Fine, she screeched, face blotchy. We'll take it all. And they did. The worst, most chaotic version of it. Sarah and Cassandra started lugging boxes toward the door, bumping them into walls, dropping them, making a show of every step. Phoebe kept screaming insults the whole time, hurling words like pathetic and loser like they were supposed to sting. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching. It was pathetic. 3 women scrambling with cardboard like clowns at a circus. Then came Julia. She had planned to swing by after lunch. And of course, her timing was perfect. She walked in carrying a pizza box, looked at the scene. Boxes everywhere, Phoebe red-faced and shrieking, and said casually, "Pepperoni." "Or veggie, Cameron." I almost laughed. "Pepperoni." She smiled, headed straight for the kitchen, not even sparing Phoebe a glance. That cut deeper than anything I could have said. Julia acted like Phoebe didn't exist. Phoebe, predictably, lost her mind. You snake. You ruined everything. He would have come back if not for you." Julia popped the pizza box open and said over her shoulder, "Sorry, who are you again?" Phoebe actually lunged toward her like she was about to start swinging, but I stepped between them instantly, voice ice cold. "That's enough. You've got 2 minutes left. Touch her and I'll make sure you leave here in handcuffs." The look on her face was priceless. Rage mixed with panic. She knew I wasn't bluffing. They finished dragging the boxes out, loading them into Sarah's SUV, slamming doors, huffing and puffing like they'd just survived a war. Finally, Phoebe stood in the doorway, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You think you've won? Everyone knows what you really are. Everyone knows you're pathetic. She won't last. And when she leaves, you'll come crawling back to me." I stepped closer. Close enough she had to tilt her chin up. My voice was flat. Final. "No, Phoebe. I won't. Because the only thing I was crawling out of was you." Her jaw clenched, eyes wild, but she had nothing left. She turned and stormed off, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I sat back down on the couch, opened the pizza box and grabbed a slice. Julia slid in next to me, calm as ever. Phoebe's screams still echoed faintly in the hallway, but inside the apartment, it was quiet. Finally quiet. I leaned back on the couch, pizza slice in hand, and felt the kind of peace you only notice after months of constant noise. But peace never lasts long when someone like Phoebe is involved. By Monday morning, the first messages started rolling in from mutuals. Nothing direct, just screenshots. Apparently, someone had recorded her tantrum in the hallway. The screaming, the box kicking, the "you're erasing me" meltdown, it was all there. 30 seconds of unfiltered Phoebe at her absolute worst. At first, I thought maybe Sarah or Cassandra would try to bury it, but nope. Someone leaked it into the group chat, and by the time I saw it, half the circle had already reacted. A few yikes comments, a couple of laughing emojis, and one guy summed it up perfectly. Now I get why Cameron dipped. That was the beginning of the end. Friends who used to tiptoe around her suddenly went radio silent. The people she thought were her loyal audience? Gone. Even Liam, who normally stayed neutral, texted me, "Dude, no wonder you looked so calm at the party. Respect." Translation: he wasn't buying her victim routine anymore. Meanwhile, Sarah tried to spin the footage. She actually messaged me on Facebook. Phoebe was just emotional. You shouldn't let people judge her off one bad moment. I wrote back, that wasn't one moment. That was 3 years condensed into 30 seconds. Don't pretend like you haven't seen it before. Blocked her there too. No energy for cleanup crews. Then Ethan jumped in. Of course. His big move was posting on Facebook about how real men don't drag women down to feel powerful, with some corny quotes slapped over a stock photo of mountains. Subtle, right? The comment section ate him alive. Half the replies were variations of, "Isn't this the guy who got called an unpaid intern to her face?" Someone even screenshotted his stunned face at the party and turned it into a meme. When you realize 3 years of simping didn't even earn you a thank you. Brutal. He deleted the post within a day. But Phoebe wasn't done yet. When the social sympathy ran out, she moved to her favorite stage, Instagram. Suddenly, her feed turned into a shrine of dramatic captions. Black and white selfies with texts like "some people can't handle strong women" or "healing from betrayal." The comments. Crickets. People had seen the video. Nobody was falling for the act anymore. By midweek, the fallout hit harder. My boss Richard called me into his office with a half smile. "You'll like this," he said, pulling up an email chain. Our company's legal team had quietly flagged her bogus complaint to her firm. Since they were one of our service vendors, it triggered a client conduct review. Once her higher-ups saw the voicemail and the HR notes, they connected the dots. Corporate doesn't play around with that kind of liability. 2 days later, her LinkedIn quietly switched to open to work. Translation: fired. The irony was perfect. She tried to take my career out, and it boomeranged back to Newkers instead. After that, the updates trickled in from mutuals. One guy mentioned she was living with her parents again. Another said Cassandra was going around telling anyone who'd listen that I stole everything from her daughter. Nobody cared. People were tired of the drama. And me. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't have to. Every desperate move she made just dug her hole deeper. One night, Julia scrolled past one of Phoebe's pity posts and asked, "Do you ever feel bad for her?" I shook my head. Nope. Feeling bad is what got me stuck with her in the first place. This is just gravity doing its job. She smirked, tossed her phone aside, and said, "Well, she definitely hates me now." "Good," I said. "Means you're doing something right." That was the beauty of it. I didn't need some grand revenge scheme. Phoebe was a self-destruct button in heels. All I had to do was step out of the blast radius and let her push it over and over. By the end of the week, the group chat that used to revolve around her was dead silent. People moved on. Her social media went private. Ethan disappeared. Sarah kept trying, but without backup, she looked like the crazy one too. Phoebe's performance was over. No stage. No audience. No applause. Just silence. And me. I had my apartment, my peace, and a fridge that finally had room for my food instead of 50 jars of skincare junk she never used. That, to me, was the real win. 6 months passed and life looked completely different. My apartment didn't feel like some showroom anymore. It felt like mine. No velvet couch that looked like it belonged in a tacky hotel lobby. No pointless abstract paintings she claimed set the vibe. No overpriced junk bought for Instagram photos. Now it had stuff that made sense. A solid leather couch. A proper desk. A coffee table I actually liked. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. For the first time in years, I could walk into my own home and not feel like I was living in someone else's brand campaign. Meanwhile, Phoebe's kingdom was reduced to rubble. Word traveled fast through our circle, and everyone had a story. She was still living at her parents' place. Jobless, bitter, scrambling. After a few months, she bounced between temp gigs, never landing anything stable. She'd tried landing another corporate job, but the thing about burning a bridge with a major client's employee? It doesn't exactly make hiring managers jump with excitement. My boss told me flat out that her name had become a liability in our industry. Sarah, her most loyal soldier, finally bailed. I heard through Liam that Ben had given her an ultimatum. Either stop being Phoebe's personal damage control officer, or their marriage was done. Sarah folded quick. No more phone calls. No more Cameron is cruel speeches. She ghosted Phoebe completely. Ethan. Even better. He went dark after that unpaid intern line went viral in the friend group. People memed him so badly that he basically disappeared. Someone said he relocated to another city, probably to avoid the constant humiliation. The guy who spent years waiting on Phoebe like a golden retriever finally realized he was never getting the treat. So now Phoebe was left with no allies, no job, no apartment, and a reputation so toxic nobody wanted to be within 10 feet of her. That's when the inevitable happened. She tried crawling back. It came on a random Tuesday night. I checked my email and, there it was, a long, desperate message from her personal account. No subject line, just a wall of text. Cameron, I've had time to think. I know I made mistakes, but you and I had something real. I still love you. Julia won't last. You know that you and I belong together. Please, just give me another chance. I leaned back in my chair and actually laughed. The audacity. After all the screaming, all the attempts to ruin me, after publicly imploding and losing everything, she still thought she was the prize. She really believed I'd come running back just because she threw the word love in there like a band-aid over 3 years of abuse. I typed one line. I thought every guy would die to have you. Have they? Then I hit send, blocked her address, and shut the laptop. Cold. Final. But the universe wasn't done sending me updates. A week later, one of my buddies texted me, "Bro, just saw Phoebe. She was ranting to strangers about how you ruined her life. Total train wreck. Apparently, she was sitting there with a glass of water, telling anyone within earshot how she used to have it all, until I sabotaged her career. People weren't even engaging. They just nodded, rolled their eyes, and went back to their own conversations. That's the thing. Her biggest fear wasn't being hated. It was being irrelevant. And that's exactly what she became. And honestly, that's what made it so satisfying. Not some explosive revenge, not a dramatic courtroom showdown, not a screaming match in front of a crowd. Just the slow, inevitable collapse of someone who thought she was untouchable. She lost her apartment, her job, her reputation, her friends, her little army of defenders. And when all that was gone, the only thing she had left was the same arrogance that destroyed her in the first place. Julia asked me once if I felt bad for Phoebe. I told her no, because that was my mistake for 3 years. Feeling bad. Making excuses. Letting her nonsense slide. The second I stopped, her entire act crumbled. People like Phoebe don't need pity. They need consequences. And she got every single one. Now, when I think back to her standing in front of that mirror telling me other guys would die to have her, I almost laugh. Because the truth came out, no guys died for her. No guys even tried. Her army vanished. Her simps abandoned ship. And her ego couldn't pay the bills. She thought I'd crawl back. Instead, she's the one crawling, to her parents, to temp jobs, to my inbox with desperate emails. And me. I never looked back. That's the difference. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube, this video deserves to blow up.